Hello, and thank you for joining the video today. My name is Christopher Lee, and my wife Allie and I own a company called Independence Benefits. We specialize in federal employee retirement planning. And in this video, we're going to cover FEGLI Option A, and we're going to explore what the coverage does while you're working, as well as how it changes in retirement, so that you can get a better idea of whether or not you should continue that FEGLI Option A coverage and how it changes. So, first of all, I just want to jump into the basics of what is FEGLI Option A. The biggest thing to know is that it is a flat coverage amount of $10,000. So what that means for you is, as a federal employee, if you've elected FEGLI Option A, that means that you have an additional $10,000 in life insurance coverage that covers yourself. So if you passed away, that $10,000 is what would go to your beneficiaries. So with FEGLI Option A, it's very simple. It's that fixed, flat $10,000 in coverage. It's the same for everybody. And while you're under the age of 40, the biweekly premium for that coverage is only about 20 cents a pay period. Another great thing about Option A is there is no medical underwriting. So once you elect that coverage at higher, there's no health exam required ever. So that does make it easy and very simple. Option A is a separate voluntary election that you would make actually when you're hired upon service. So if you've opted into that coverage, then that is kind of what you're looking at there. Let's look at FEGLI Option A premiums while you're working. So you can see I've got a chart on this screen, and this is pulled directly from OPM's website. So you'll see while you're under the age of 35, the biweekly cost is only about 20 cents, as we mentioned. And that cost does slowly start to creep up as your age increases. You'll see by age 50, you're paying about $1 per pay period for that 10,000 in coverage. Then if we look at age 60 and beyond, at that point, it's increased to about $6 a pay period that you're paying there. So again, that FEGLI Option A, it's that fixed $10,000 in coverage. That does not change while you're working. And it's cheap for the majority of your career. So while you're young, you're paying, very, very little for that coverage. Under the age of 55, you're paying under $4 a month total. So you're barely going to notice that coming out of your pay, but it is nice to have that supplemental 10,000 in coverage for sure. Now, when you get to age 60, you do start to notice a pretty steep jump in the premium. It goes from $1.80 at that point to about $6 a pay period. Still, it's not super expensive. So the next question we usually get is, what happens to my FEGLI Option A in retirement? So at retirement, let's say you're retiring before the age of 65. So maybe you're retiring at age 57 or at age 60. That coverage stays the same if you elect to keep it. So in that example, you would keep the full $10,000 in coverage, and you continue to pay the premium for that coverage. And that would actually be deducted from your pension each month. Now, once you reach the age of 65, that coverage completely changes. So at 65, you no longer have to pay that premium any longer, but your Option A coverage is going to begin to reduce by 2% per month. So with 10,000 in coverage, that 2% means each month your coverage amount reduces by $200. So, kind of the downside is that coverage does start to diminish, but you're no longer having to pay for that premium. And then finally, after that full reduction is done, you will have $2,500 in coverage remaining. But again, you no longer pay for that coverage. So you've just got $2,500 in coverage that you'll have for the rest of your life at zero cost. So a lot of times as we're helping people through the retirement planning process, if they have the FEGLI Option A and they're pretty close to that age 65 mark, a lot of times it makes sense to keep that coverage because you're no longer going to have to pay for it. Even though it does begin to reduce and it drops down to, 2,500, which is not much in coverage, if it's free and you're going to have it anyways, it makes sense to keep it at that point. So, is it worth keeping again? And we just kind of covered on that. Now, if you're still working, one thing you have to consider is what you're going to pay into that coverage over the course of your career. So, let's look at an employee that's maybe hired at the age of 25 and that's planning to retire later at 62. So we can see under the cost, over that period of time, over their career, they would have paid about $8,700 into that option A coverage. That's for that 10,000 in coverage that they would have until they reach 65. Then of course it diminishes it and goes down to 2,500 in coverage. So for most people, this can be a good decision. It's good to have that additional 10,000 in coverage for a pretty cheap amount while you're working. I will say that the FEGLI Option A is typically not something that's going to make or break you, just due to the low cost and the low coverage amounts. If you're looking to supplement something like your FEGLI Option A, maybe your Option B, C, or even your basic coverage, what makes sense is to have a FEGLI review. And that's what we offer at Independence Benefits. We will sit down with you and walk through all of your FEGLI elections so we can give you an idea of the coverage that you have now while you're working, what it's costing, and then finally how that coverage and cost is going to change in retirement. Um, then you'll be able to make the decision of, should I adjust my FEGLI coverage, or does it also make sense to maybe add something like a term policy that's going to remain the same, and that I know the cost and premiums are going to stay level on. So we would love to help you with that. What I'll do is I'm going to put a link in the description where you can schedule your FEGLI review. I'll also put my phone number and email on the screen. If you have questions, you can just email or call me directly, and I'll be happy to help walk you through your specific situation. Everybody's situation is different. Everybody's going to have a different need for life insurance coverage in retirement. So we'd be happy to help walk you through and give you a better idea of what your specific situation looks like. So with that, I just want to thank you for watching the video today, and I look forward to hearing from you.